Way to Wisdom, An Introduction to Philosophy by Karl Jaspers, quotes. Way to Wisdom, An Introduction to Philosophy by Karl Jaspers offers a thoughtful entry into the fundamental questions and concepts that shape philosophical inquiry. In this introductory work, Jaspers emphasizes the importance of philosophy as a means to understand one's existence, urging readers to examine life beyond conventional wisdom and to pursue a deeper understanding of self and reality. He covers topics such as the nature of truth, freedom, and the role of philosophy in human life, positioning philosophy as a guide that helps individuals confront existential questions. Jaspers' approach is inviting, encouraging readers to embark on their own journey of questioning, reflection, and self-discovery. Quote 1. For the scientific-minded, the worst aspect of philosophy is that it produces no universally valid results. It provides nothing that we can know and thus possess. Unlike science, which aims to provide concrete, universally accepted answers, philosophy deals with questions that often remain unresolved. The lack of definitive knowledge in philosophy frustrates those who seek certainty, as philosophical inquiry often leads to more questions rather than concrete answers. Quote 2. It lies in the very nature of philosophy, as distinguished from the sciences, that in any of its forms it must dispense with the unanimous recognition of all. Philosophy is inherently different from science, because it doesn't rely on universal agreement or objective evidence. Instead, it seeks a personal certainty that resonates deeply within the individual, touching on matters that concern the whole of human existence, rather than just empirical facts. Quote 3. The certainty to which it aspires is not of the objective, scientific sort, which is the same for every mind. It is an inner certainty in which a man's whole being participates. Philosophical certainty is a subjective experience, deeply connected to the individual's inner understanding. Unlike scientific truths that are universally valid, philosophical insights are personal and resonate within the full scope of human existence, engaging emotions, intellect, and personal reflection. Quote 4. Philosophy deals with the whole of being, which concerns man as man, with a truth which, wherever it is manifested, moves us more deeply than any scientific knowledge. Philosophy aims to explore the entirety of existence and human experience. The truths it seeks are not about particular aspects of reality, but about the nature of existence itself, evoking a sense of depth and wonder that transcends the measurable truths found in science. Quote 5. Philosophical thought must always spring from free creation. Every man must accomplish it for himself. Philosophy is not something that can simply be inherited or learned through external means. It requires personal engagement and creative thinking. Each individual must engage with philosophical questions and arrive at their own understanding through their unique process of thought. Quote 6. It is sometimes said that the children must have heard all this from their parents or someone else, but such an objection obviously does not apply to the child's really serious questions. Children's innate curiosity often leads them to ask profound philosophical questions. These are not simply reflections of what they have heard from adults, but come from their direct experience and wonder about the world, demonstrating a natural capacity for philosophical thought. Quote 7. There is no escape from philosophy. The question is only whether a philosophy is conscious or not, whether it is good or bad, muddled or clear. Everyone engages in philosophy, whether they realize it or not. Our beliefs, values, and assumptions about life and existence reflect an underlying philosophical stance. The difference lies in whether we approach these issues consciously and thoughtfully, or whether we remain unaware of the philosophical foundations of our ideas. Quote 8. Philosophy means to be on the way. Its questions are more essential than its answers, and every answer becomes a new question. Philosophy is a never-ending journey of inquiry. The process of questioning is more important than finding final answers, as each answer opens up new avenues for exploration. This continual search for understanding is what defines philosophical thought. Quote 9. Philosophy is the principle of concentration through which man becomes himself by partaking of reality. Through philosophical inquiry, individuals can come to a deeper understanding of themselves and their place in the world. It is a process of focusing on fundamental truths about existence, which enables a person to connect with the reality of their being and essence. Quote 10. Philosophy is always with us. Philosophy is an essential and inescapable part of human existence. It persists throughout history, guiding human thought and reflecting the fundamental need for understanding and meaning in life. No matter how various philosophies evolve, their presence remains integral to the human condition. Quote 11. Philosophy cannot fight, it cannot prove its truth, but it can communicate itself. Philosophy does not seek to win arguments or prove itself definitively like a science or political ideology. Instead, its power lies in communication, in conveying ideas that connect all human beings, emphasizing a shared quest for understanding and insight into existence. Quote 12. The beginning is historical and provides those who follow with the mounting accumulation of insights, but it is always from the source that the impulsion to philosophize springs. While philosophy has historical roots and evolves through time, its true drive comes from the primal human experiences that continue to inspire philosophical inquiry. Wonder, doubt, and existential questions remain timeless sources that propel human beings toward reflection and understanding, beyond just historical accumulation of knowledge. Quote 13. Wonder impels man to seek knowledge. In my wonderment, I become aware of my lack of knowledge. Philosophy begins with wonder. It is the recognition of the unknown that motivates humans to seek understanding. This curiosity and awe lead to a search for deeper truths about existence, moving beyond practical concerns to the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. Quote 14. In philosophical thought, man awakens from his bondage to practical needs. Philosophy liberates individuals from the everyday concerns and utilitarian needs of life. It elevates thought beyond the immediate, allowing humans to contemplate existence, the universe, and their place within it without seeking material gain or solutions to practical problems. Quote 15. In ultimate situations, man either perceives nothingness or senses true being in spite of, and above all, ephemeral worldly existence. When confronted with the inescapable realities of life, such as death, guilt, and suffering, individuals either fall into despair or discover a sense of true being that transcends the transient nature of the world. These moments of confrontation with existential limits can lead to profound realizations about the essence of existence. Quote 16. The ultimate source is the will to authentic communication, which embraces all the rest. At its core, philosophy is driven by the desire for genuine communication between individuals. This need for authentic dialogue unites the other sources of philosophy, such as wonder and doubt, and reveals the essence of philosophical inquiry as a shared human endeavor to understand and connect with others. Quote 17. Communication, then, is the aim of philosophy, and in communication, all its other aims are ultimately rooted. Philosophy's ultimate goal is communication, not only in terms of sharing ideas, but also in fostering mutual understanding between individuals. Through philosophical dialogue, people can achieve deeper awareness, love, and peace, fulfilling the essence of human life. Quote 18. What is true being, that is, the being which holds everything together, lies at the base of everything, the being from which everything that is issues. Philosophy seeks to understand the nature of true being, the foundational existence from which everything originates. Throughout history, various metaphysical perspectives have offered different explanations for this ultimate source, yet no single view has proven conclusive. This ongoing inquiry reflects humanity's deep curiosity about the fundamental structure of reality. Quote 19. The comprehensive remains obscure to my consciousness. It becomes clear only through objects, and takes on greater clarity as the objects become more conscious and more clear. The comprehensive, or the totality of being, cannot be directly perceived, but is understood through the objects and experiences that emerge in our consciousness. As we engage more deeply with the world around us, our understanding of the comprehensive grows, although it always remains elusive, existing beyond the reach of direct perception. Quote 20. As long as we are awake and conscious, we are always in this dichotomy, always oriented toward an object, whether the object be the reality of our sense perception, or even an impossible imagining. Human consciousness operates within a subject-object dichotomy, where the self, subject, constantly interacts with the external world, object. This dichotomy shapes all of our experiences, thoughts, and perceptions, making it a fundamental structure of how we engage with reality, even when we imagine things beyond tangible existence. Quote 21. For dichotomy is a relation between things in the world which confront me as objects. This relation becomes an image by which to express what is not visible and can itself never become object. The subject-object relationship is an essential way of understanding the world, even though it only offers an indirect grasp of true being. This relationship creates representations and images of reality, but the true essence of being itself remains beyond direct objectification, hinting at the limitations of human perception and understanding. Quote 22. God as object is a reality only for us as existence. He is situated in an entirely different dimension from the empirical, sensible objects susceptible to compelling knowledge. God, as conceived in philosophical terms, exists outside the realm of empirical objects and sensory perception. He is a reality that can only be grasped by existence, or the human being's authentic self, rather than through the empirical methods we use to understand the material world, placing the divine in a distinct, transcendent dimension. Quote 23. Mystics have always been unable to communicate what is most essential in their experience. Mystical experiences often transcend language and the subject-object dichotomy that defines ordinary human thought. While mystics may grasp profound truths about the nature of being, these insights remain incommunicable because they defy the structures of thought and language that we rely on to convey meaning. Quote 24. For superstition is chained to the object. Faith is rooted in the comprehensive. Superstition relies on external objects and material representations for its understanding of the world, while true faith transcends these limited forms and is anchored in the comprehensive, the totality of being that exists beyond physical and object-based constraints. This distinction highlights the deeper nature of faith as a connection to the ultimate reality. Quote 25. Being itself, the foundation of all things, the absolute, presses upon our consciousness in object form, which, because as object it is inadequate, disintegrates, leaving behind the pure clarity of the presence of the comprehensive. When being reveals itself to us through objects, these representations are always inadequate to capture the full essence of being. Eventually, they break down, leaving behind a more profound, abstract understanding of the comprehensive, which transcends the limitations of objectified knowledge and offers a clearer sense of the totality of existence. Quote 26. Our philosophical thinking passes through this nihilism, which is, in truth, a liberation for authentic being. Nihilism, or the rejection of absolute meaning in finite things, can be seen not as despair, but as a necessary step toward recognizing authentic being. By moving beyond illusions of certainty in the material world, philosophy liberates us to embrace deeper truths and find freedom in the infinite possibilities of existence. Quote 27. Our Western idea of God springs from two historical roots, the Bible and Greek philosophy. The concept of God in Western thought is deeply influenced by both the revelations of the Bible and the philosophical traditions of ancient Greece. These two sources have shaped how people in the West understand and contemplate the divine, intertwining faith-based and rational perspectives. Quote 28. When everything is lost, but one thing remains, God is. In the face of complete failure and destruction, the belief that God exists provides a profound source of consolation and meaning. This certainty does not rely on worldly success or historical achievements, but on the fundamental reality that God exists, regardless of human circumstances. Quote 29. God is not seen with our eyes, that he resembles no one, and can be recognized in no image. The idea of God in Greek philosophy emphasizes that God is beyond human perception and cannot be represented through any image or likeness. This highlights the transcendence of God, who cannot be confined to material forms or understood through physical senses. Quote 30. The so-called proofs of the existence of God are fundamentally no proofs at all, but methods of achieving certainty through thought. The traditional arguments for God's existence are not scientific proofs in the strict sense, but philosophical approaches that help individuals reach a sense of certainty about God's presence through contemplation and reason. These proofs guide thought rather than conclusively demonstrate God's existence. Quote 31. God is not an object of knowledge, of compelling evidence. He cannot be experienced by the senses. God's existence transcends the kind of empirical sensory knowledge that humans use to understand the physical world. Instead, belief in God arises from faith, intuition, and the recognition of a reality that is not accessible through ordinary means of perception or proof. Quote 32. Freedom and God are inseparable. The experience of human freedom is intimately connected to the certainty of God's existence. When individuals realize that their freedom is not entirely their own, but is given to them, they sense a connection to a higher power, transcendence, that enables and sustains their true freedom. Quote 33. To believe in God means to live by something which is not in the world, except in the polyvalent language of phenomena. Faith in God is not based on observable, tangible things, but on something beyond the world of objects. The signs of God's presence are found in the symbolic meanings of the world's phenomena, which point to the transcendent reality of God. Quote 34. The reality of God and the immediacy of our historical relation to God exclude any universally compelling knowledge of God. God's reality is deeply personal and experienced individually, making it impossible to provide a universally accepted knowledge of God. Each person's relationship with God is shaped by their unique history and experience, which cannot be fully generalized or proven to others. Quote 35. Reflection on God clarifies our faith, but to believe is not to see. Contemplating God helps deepen and clarify one's faith, but belief in God is fundamentally different from empirical knowledge. Faith requires trust and conviction beyond what can be directly seen or scientifically proven, making it a distinct and personal mode of understanding. Quote 36. Speech ceases in the presence of that which is lost to us when it becomes object. When contemplating the divine or ultimate reality, human language reaches its limits. The moment we try to reduce transcendence to an object of discussion, we lose the essence of what we are trying to grasp. True understanding of such profound realities lies beyond words and conceptual thought. Quote 37. When we obey the unconditional imperative, our empirical existence becomes, in a sense, the raw material of the idea, of love, of a loyalty. The unconditional imperative transforms the way we live by elevating our existence beyond mere survival or practical concerns. Instead, our actions become expressions of deeper values, like love and loyalty, which guide us toward an eternal aim. This shift allows us to live for something greater than ourselves, even if it means accepting personal sacrifice or death in extreme situations. Quote 38. And the only escape from this emptiness is for man himself as an individual to win authentic being as the foundation of his decisions. When individuals rely on external authorities or success for their sense of purpose, they may eventually encounter emptiness when those sources fail. The only way to escape this existential void is by cultivating one's own authentic self, making decisions based on inner convictions rather than external validation, and grounding one's life in personal integrity. Quote 39. The unconditional imperative comes to me as the command of my authentic self to my mere empirical existence. The unconditional imperative emerges from a deeper sense of self, directing one's actions toward what one ought to be, rather than merely responding to external circumstances. This inner command shapes a person's true identity and guides them to act in ways that align with their essential being, beyond the transient aspects of their empirical existence. Quote 40. The unconditional is a foundation of action, and hence not an object of knowledge, but an element of faith. The unconditional imperative cannot be fully understood or proven through logical reasoning or objective knowledge. It is something that individuals live by faith, trusting in its guidance as they make decisions. This foundation of action is rooted in belief, not certainty, and is realized through commitment to values beyond what can be scientifically verified. Quote 41. It means to partake in the eternal, in being. Accordingly, it implies absolute reliability and loyalty, which derive not from nature, but from our decision. To follow the unconditional imperative is to align oneself with eternal truths, manifesting absolute reliability and loyalty. These qualities are not the result of natural inclinations, but are the product of a conscious decision to live according to higher principles, affirming one's connection to a greater, timeless reality. Quote 42. It is the unconditional which decides the ultimate basis of a man's life, which determines whether it is significant or meaningless. The unconditional imperative gives life its ultimate meaning. It acts as a compass for determining whether a person's existence is meaningful or hollow. When individuals live by the unconditional, they find purpose and direction, whereas life without it may feel aimless and devoid of deeper significance. Quote 43. On this level, evil is only the will to evil, the will to destruction as such, the urge to inflict torture, cruelty, annihilation, the nihilistic will to ruin everything that is and has value. At the deepest level, evil is characterized by a pure desire for destruction and harm. It represents the will to undo and annihilate, driven by hatred and a rejection of all that is good, valuable, or meaningful. This nihilistic impulse seeks to obliterate rather than build or preserve, standing in direct opposition to the forces of love and creation. Quote 44. Man awakens only when he distinguishes between good and evil. He becomes himself when he decides which way he is going and acts accordingly. A person truly becomes aware of themselves when they consciously differentiate between good and evil, making a clear decision about the direction of their life. This decision is critical to self-realization, as it shapes one's identity and actions, defining who they are and the kind of life they will lead. Quote 45. To live out of love seems to include all the rest. True love gives certainty regarding the ethical truth of its acts. Living from a place of love encompasses all other virtues and imperatives. True love not only guides ethical behavior, but also ensures that one's actions are aligned with deeper moral truths. Love becomes the ultimate source of certainty and direction, harmonizing a person's inner values with their outward actions. Quote 46. Only the unconditional character of the good fills mere duties with content, purifies our ethical motives, dissolves the destructive will of hatred. The unconditional aspect of goodness is what gives meaning and purpose to our duties, elevating them beyond mere obligations. It purifies the motives behind our actions, ensuring that they stem from a genuine desire for good, and it counteracts the negative impulses of hatred and destruction, transforming how we engage with the world. Quote 47. Man is fundamentally more than he can know about himself. While human beings can gain extensive knowledge about their physical, psychological, and social selves through various fields of study, this knowledge is never complete. There is always an aspect of freedom and existence that eludes objective understanding, meaning that humans are always more than the sum of what can be known about them. Quote 48. We are conscious of our freedom when we recognize imperatives addressed to us. Human beings become aware of their freedom through the recognition of moral imperatives, which they can either follow or reject. This ability to make choices and be responsible for those choices affirms the existence of personal freedom and accountability, which is central to our understanding of ourselves as free beings. Quote 49. The more authentically free a man is, the greater his certainty of God. As individuals experience greater freedom in their lives, they also develop a deeper awareness of transcendence, particularly of God. True freedom leads to an acknowledgement that this freedom is not self-generated, but given, creating a profound connection between personal freedom and belief in God's existence. Quote 50. Man's relation to God is not a quality given by nature. The relationship between humans and God does not come naturally or biologically. It is something that awakens in individuals when they move beyond merely surviving or living by instinct toward a higher sense of self that is open to the world and connected to God through authentic freedom. Quote 51. Once we know the limits of knowledge, we shall entrust ourselves all the more clearly to the guidance which freedom itself offers to our freedom, if it is oriented toward God. Recognizing the limitations of human knowledge allows individuals to place greater trust in the guidance that comes from their inner sense of freedom, especially when this freedom is aligned with a higher, transcendent purpose. This trust in inner guidance is crucial for living a meaningful life. Quote 52. The voice of God lies in the self-awareness that dawns in the individual, when he is open to everything that comes to him from his tradition and environment. God's guidance manifests as a form of self-awareness that emerges when an individual is receptive to the influences of their cultural and environmental context. This openness allows them to hear a deeper call to action or judgment, which they can interpret as divine guidance in their lives. Quote 53. Consequently, human judgment is in error from the outset, when man expects to find in it God's final word, upon which he can absolutely rely. Human beings often err when they believe their judgments are the final or absolute truth, especially when they equate them with God's judgment. True divine guidance is always nuanced and never definitive, requiring humility and an openness to continual reevaluation rather than certainty. Quote 54. Even the certainty of decision, insofar as it is manifested in the world, must retain a certain element of suspension. While individuals may feel confident in their decisions, especially when they believe they are guided by God, there must always be an element of uncertainty. This humility acknowledges that human judgment is fallible, and that what seems clear in the moment may later be revealed as incorrect. Quote 55. The task, however, cannot be adequately defined as pursuit of earthly happiness, but can only be understood clearly through transcendence. The ultimate purpose of human life goes beyond the mere pursuit of happiness or material satisfaction. True meaning can only be fully grasped by looking beyond the earthly realm and understanding one's existence in relation to a transcendent reality, particularly through the unconditional commandment of love. Quote 56. God works through the free decisions of the individual. Divine guidance operates not through predetermined or externally imposed rules, but through the individual's free choices. When a person exercises freedom responsibly and in alignment with their understanding of God, They are participating in the unfolding of God's will through their own actions. Quote 57. We call reality that which is present to us in practice, that which in our dealings with things, with living creatures, and with men, is resistance or becomes matter. Reality, as we understand it in daily life, is what we encounter directly in our practical interactions with the world. It is the tangible resistance or material form we experience when engaging with objects, living beings, or other people. This understanding of reality emerges through our actions and responses to the world around us. Quote 58. The world system purports to disclose reality as a whole in one world, a cosmos, every part of which is related to every other part. The concept of a world system aims to present reality as a unified, interconnected whole, where every part of the universe is tied to every other part. This idea suggests that reality can be understood as a comprehensive system, a cosmos that reveals the relationships between all its elements. Quote 59. But the interpretation is not arbitrary. If it is sound, it has an objective character. Being compels these interpretations. While all understanding of reality is, to some extent, an interpretation, this interpretation is not random. When interpretations are sound, they are shaped by the nature of reality itself, which guides and compels us to certain conclusions. Being, in its essence, directs how we interpret it. Quote 60. All being is for us an interpretation. Our experience of being is always mediated by interpretation. We do not directly access reality in its entirety. Instead, we perceive and understand it through the lens of our interpretations, which shape how we conceptualize and engage with the world. Quote 61. The reality of the world as a whole is no object of knowledge. We can never fully grasp the reality of the world in its entirety. The totality of the world as a whole cannot be known or contained within a single system of knowledge. It eludes complete comprehension, always remaining beyond the reach of human understanding. Quote 62. It is the supreme striving of knowledge to reach the point where cognition fails. The ultimate aim of human knowledge is to push its limits to the point where understanding breaks down. At this boundary, we encounter non-knowledge, the realization that there are aspects of reality that lie beyond what we can know. This fulfilled non-knowledge is achieved only through the fullest extent of inquiry. Quote 63. Honesty must recognize the untruth both in the ideas of harmony of being and nihilistic chaos. Neither the belief in a perfect harmony of existence nor the rejection of all meaning as chaos represents the full truth. Both perspectives are flawed because they make total judgments about reality based on incomplete knowledge. True honesty requires an open-minded approach that avoids these extremes. Quote 64. As principles of faith become more universal, they lose their historicity. When principles of faith are generalized and made abstract, they lose their connection to specific historical and cultural contexts. As these principles become more universal, they become less tied to the concrete experiences and traditions that once gave them meaning. Quote 65. Unlimited devotion to God is the authentic mode of existence. Devotion to God represents the highest form of human existence. This devotion must constantly be tested in relation to God's will, ensuring that the individual's dedication is not blind or misplaced, but is aligned with a higher, transcendent purpose. This process affirms the authenticity of one's life and actions, moving beyond mere worldly concerns. Quote 66. The world is transient, but the reality in this transience is God and existence. While the world is constantly changing and impermanent, the deeper reality behind this transience is rooted in God and human existence. These are the eternal elements that persist despite the temporal nature of the world, giving it meaning and providing a foundation for understanding life. Quote 67. None of these 5 principles is demonstrable in the sense of a limited insight into objects in the world. The 5 principles of philosophical faith: belief in God, the unconditional imperative, human finitude, the possibility of living by God's guidance, and the ephemeral nature of the world, cannot be proven through empirical means. They are not based on direct knowledge of the material world, but are understood through reasoning and existential experience. Glib's quote 68. Statements of principles fill us with misgiving. They are too readily treated like a body of knowledge, and this vitiates their purpose. When philosophical principles are presented too simply, they can be misinterpreted as definitive knowledge rather than open-ended ideas. This undermines their deeper purpose, which is to guide thoughtful reflection and existential exploration rather than to provide concrete, dogmatic answers. Quote 69. There can be true and there can be false enlightenment. Enlightenment can take both genuine and misleading forms. True enlightenment involves a deep, thoughtful inquiry that respects the limits of human understanding, while false enlightenment leads to oversimplification and absolutization of knowledge, often resulting in arrogance and a misunderstanding of the true nature of reality. Quote 70. True enlightenment recognizes that it cannot dispense with faith. Even in the pursuit of knowledge, true enlightenment acknowledges the necessity of faith. Rational thought and empirical inquiry cannot provide all the answers, and there are aspects of existence, particularly those related to meaning and purpose, that require belief in something beyond what can be known or proven. Quote 71. We cannot combat unfaith directly, but we can combat the demonstrably false claims of rationalistic pseudo-knowledge and the claims of faith that assume a falsely rational form. While it may not be possible to directly challenge disbelief, it is important to address the errors that arise when either reason or faith takes on an ungrounded, rigid form. Rationalism that overreaches or faith that pretends to be purely logical both distort the truth and need to be corrected through thoughtful critique. Quote 72. The source of these premises upon which thought must depend is ultimately unknowable. The foundational ideas that guide human thought, such as faith and sensory experience, stem from sources that cannot be fully understood or known. These premises lie beyond human comprehension, rooted in the mysterious nature of existence itself, which we can only partially grasp through reason and reflection. Quote 73. It is a fallacy of false enlightenment to suppose that the understanding by itself alone can know truth and being. The belief that human understanding alone can reveal the full truth of existence is a mistake. True knowledge requires more than just intellectual insight. It depends on a combination of reason, faith, and the recognition of limits in human cognition. Quote 74. Philosophy, through its reasoned approach to tradition, makes possible our faith. Philosophy plays a key role in enabling faith by critically engaging with tradition. By exploring the foundations of belief and questioning long-held ideas, philosophy helps individuals understand and solidify their faith, ensuring that it is not blind but grounded in thoughtful reflection and existential inquiry. Quote 75. No reality is more essential to our self-awareness than history. History serves as a critical mirror through which we come to understand ourselves. It provides the broadest context for human experience, reveals the traditions upon which our lives are built, and offers standards for evaluating the present. By looking into history, we free ourselves from the limitations of our own time and gain insights into the highest human potential. Quote 76. History sometimes appears to be a chaos of accidental happenings, an eddying flood. At times, history can seem like a series of random events with no clear direction or meaning. It passes through periods of turmoil, catastrophes, and fleeting moments of happiness, which are often soon swept away. This chaotic view highlights the challenge of finding unity or structure in the course of human events. Quote 77. The spiritual process, which took place between 800 and 200 BC, seems to constitute such an axis. The period between 800 and 200 BC marks a significant turning point in human history, often referred to as the Axial Age. During this time, major spiritual and philosophical developments emerged in China, India, Persia, Palestine, and Greece, shaping the foundations of humanity's intellectual and religious traditions, which continue to influence the world today. Quote 78. Man everywhere became aware of being as a whole, of himself and his limits. In the Axial Age, people across different cultures became deeply conscious of their existence and its limitations. They began to confront fundamental questions about life, the universe, and their own place within it. This newfound awareness led to profound philosophical and religious inquiries, seeking answers to humanity's most pressing existential concerns. Quote 79. This era produced the basic categories in which we still think and created the world religions out of which men still live. The intellectual and spiritual developments of the Axial Age gave rise to the fundamental concepts and categories that continue to shape human thought. Many of the world's major religions and philosophical systems were formed during this time, and they remain the basis for much of modern thinking about ethics, existence, and the divine. Quote 80. Man was no longer self-contained. He was uncertain of himself, hence open to new and boundless possibilities. During the Axial Age, humans lost the sense of certainty and self-sufficiency they once had. This uncertainty opened them up to exploring new ideas and possibilities, allowing for the development of diverse philosophies and religious traditions. This openness to the unknown marked a significant shift in human consciousness. Quote 81. The spiritual life of men is still oriented toward the Axial Age. Even though many centuries have passed, much of the spiritual and intellectual life of humanity continues to be influenced by the ideas and traditions that emerged during the Axial Age. This period laid the groundwork for the enduring religious and philosophical frameworks that guide human understanding of the world. Quote 82. If we seek the meaning of history in a movement toward some ultimate state of happiness on earth, we find no corroboration in any conceivable view of past history. History does not support the idea that humanity is moving toward an ultimate state of happiness or perfection on earth. Instead, the historical record is full of both successes and catastrophes, suggesting that such a goal is not reflected in the actual course of events. This challenges the notion that history has a clear, progressive aim. Quote 83. History is the stage upon which man can reveal what he is, what he can be, what he can become, of what he is capable. History serves as the backdrop for human potential to unfold. Through the challenges and events of history, people demonstrate their capabilities, explore new possibilities, and reveal the essence of what it means to be human. This process of self-revelation is a key purpose of the historical journey. Quote 84. Unity can be gained only from the depth of historicity, not as a common, knowable content, but in boundless communication of the historically different in never-ending dialogue. True unity among people can only emerge from the deep understanding of historical differences and through continuous dialogue. It is not something that can be achieved through a single universal idea or belief system, but through ongoing communication that respects and engages with diverse perspectives and experiences. Quote 85. But to philosophize is to fight for our inner independence under all conditions. Philosophy is a means of preserving and fighting for one's inner freedom, even when the external world is overwhelming. Inner independence is not simply about detachment from the world, but about maintaining one's ability to think, reflect, and act with autonomy, regardless of the pressures and constraints imposed by society or external circumstances. Quote 86. The concept of independence is almost hopelessly ambivalent. Independence is a complex and ambiguous idea, often misunderstood. While independence can mean freedom from external influences or pressures, it can also lead to isolation or irresponsibility. True independence involves striking a balance between being free from external forces and maintaining meaningful connections to the world and others. Quote 87. Absolute independence is impossible. Complete independence is unattainable because human beings are inherently dependent on experience, relationships, and the world around them. True freedom arises from recognizing and accepting these dependencies while maintaining a sense of autonomy and responsibility within the context of one's relationships and environment. Quote 88. Our independence of the world is inseparable from a mode of dependence on the world. Human independence does not mean total separation from the world, but rather involves a dynamic relationship with it. To be truly independent, one must acknowledge their connections to the world and find a way to engage with it meaningfully while maintaining inner freedom. Quote 89. Independence does not derive its content from itself. Independence, by itself, is empty unless it is grounded in something greater, such as purpose, meaning, or a connection to transcendent truths. Without this grounding, independence becomes arbitrary and can lead to a hollow or directionless existence. Quote 90. Our independence itself requires help. Even in our quest for independence, we need support beyond ourselves. This assistance comes from a transcendent source, something greater than human limitations. True independence is not about self-sufficiency alone, but about recognizing the need for guidance and strength from something beyond. Quote 91. The only independence possible for us is dependence on transcendence. Human beings can only achieve true independence by recognizing their dependence on a higher, transcendent reality. This form of independence is not about detachment from the world, but about finding strength and freedom in something beyond oneself, enabling a deeper engagement with life. Quote 92. We lend little credence to a philosopher who is imperturbable. We do not believe in the calm of the Stoic. Philosophical independence is not about remaining unmoved or indifferent to the world, as some Stoics might suggest. True independence embraces human emotions and experiences, including fear and passion, and grows through an engagement with life rather than through detachment or indifference. Quote 93. Philosophy is the school of this independence. It is not the possession of independence. Philosophy is not about achieving a state of complete independence, but rather about continuously striving for it. It teaches the process of cultivating independence, encouraging individuals to remain open, reflective, and engaged with life, always growing in their understanding of themselves and the world. Quote 94. Then we shall suffer without complaining, despair without succumbing. We shall be shaken, but not overturned. Through philosophical independence, individuals learn to face life's challenges with resilience. Even in moments of suffering or despair, this inner independence allows them to endure and continue forward, finding strength and stability in their deeper understanding of themselves and their connection to transcendence. Quote 95. If our lives are not to be diffuse and meaningless, they must find their place in an order. To live a meaningful life, we must establish a structure or order that guides our actions and gives purpose to our daily routines. This order may come from personal principles or external traditions, but it must permeate even the simplest of tasks, providing depth and meaning to our existence. Quote 96. Philosophy is the decision to awaken our primal source, to find our way back to ourselves, and to help ourselves by inner action. Engaging in philosophy is a conscious choice to reconnect with our innermost being. Through philosophical reflection and inner action, we reclaim our sense of self from the distractions of the external world and rediscover the core of who we are. Quote 97. There are two paths of philosophical life: the path of solitary meditation in all its ramifications, and the path of communication with men. Philosophical life can be pursued through deep, solitary contemplation or through meaningful interactions and communication with others. Both paths are essential, as they offer different ways of understanding the self and the world, one through introspection and the other through dialogue. Quote 98. The truth begins with two. Truth is not something that can be fully realized in isolation. It emerges through communication and interaction with others. Only in the process of sharing ideas and engaging in dialogue can truth be uncovered and understood more deeply. Quote 99. He who acknowledges no mystery is no longer a seeker. The acknowledgement of mystery is central to the philosophical quest. Once a person believes they understand everything and ceases to wonder, they lose the curiosity that drives philosophical inquiry. A true seeker remains open to the unknown and is willing to explore the limits of human understanding. Quote 100. To philosophize is then at once to learn how to live and to know how to die. Philosophy teaches us both how to live fully and how to confront the inevitability of death. By exploring life's meaning and confronting its end, we come to terms with the human condition and learn how to live with purpose, even in the face of mortality. Quote 101. Philosophical thought begins at the limits of this rational knowledge. Philosophy starts where rational knowledge, such as science and logic, reaches its boundaries. It deals with questions that go beyond empirical understanding, exploring the deeper aspects of existence that cannot be fully explained through reason alone. Quote 102. Only transcendence can make this questionable life good, the world beautiful, and existence itself a fulfillment. It is through an awareness of the transcendent, something beyond the material and everyday, that life gains meaning and beauty. This connection to transcendence brings fulfillment and helps us make sense of the inherent uncertainties and challenges of existence. Quote 103. Meditation teaches us the power of thought. Through meditation, we discover the true power of thought, which shapes our understanding of ourselves and the world. This reflective practice allows us to tap into deeper truths, transforming our perception and guiding us toward a more authentic way of living. Quote 104. The goal of a philosophical life cannot be formulated as a state of being, which is attainable and once attained, perfect. The philosophical life is not about reaching a final, perfect state of being. Instead, it is a continuous journey of striving and self-discovery. This process is dynamic, with no fixed endpoint, as human existence is characterized by ongoing growth and exploration. Quote 105. Philosophy is as old as religion and older than the churches. Philosophy and religion have deep, ancient roots, but philosophy predates the institutional structures of religion, like the church. While religion has often organized human spirituality, philosophy has always been a more individual pursuit, exploring the nature of existence and truth without the formalities or authorities associated with religious institutions. Quote 106. The churches are for all, philosophy for individuals. While religious institutions are designed to serve large communities and guide the masses, philosophy is a deeply personal endeavor. It speaks to the individual mind, offering a space for unique, personal reflection rather than communal worship or adherence to collective doctrines. Quote 107. Independent philosophy comes to no man of itself. No one is born into it. It must always be acquired anew. Philosophy is not something that one is naturally born into or that comes passively. It must be sought out and cultivated through active engagement, study, and personal reflection. Each person must discover it for themselves, continuously renewing their understanding and relationship with philosophical thought. Quote 108. The whole of the history of philosophy throughout 2.5 millennia is like a single vast moment in the growing self-awareness of man. The history of philosophy, spanning thousands of years, can be seen as a continuous moment in humanity's collective journey toward self-understanding. Over time, philosophical ideas evolve and build upon one another, contributing to a broader exploration of what it means to be human. Quote 109. There are worlds of intellectual exchange which endure for a time, to which the individual thinker contributes his word. Certain periods in history foster intense philosophical dialogue, where many thinkers contribute to a shared intellectual environment. These eras are characterized by vibrant exchange and debate, with each philosopher adding their unique insights to the collective understanding of their time. Quote 110. Philosophy, like religion, exists at all times. Philosophy, like religion, is a constant aspect of human existence. It endures through the ages, even in times of turmoil or spiritual decline. Whether through formal teaching or personal reflection, philosophy remains an essential part of human thought, always present in the lives of a few dedicated individuals. Quote 111. Every great philosophy is complete and whole in itself, living by its own right, without reference to any broader historical truth. Each significant philosophical system is self-contained, offering its own complete vision of the world. While it may be part of a larger historical narrative, a great philosophy stands on its own, independent of the broader historical context in which it arose, offering timeless insights that transcend any particular era. Quote 112. The tradition is an authority that cannot be obeyed with certainty. The philosophical tradition offers wisdom and guidance, but it cannot be followed blindly or with absolute certainty. Each individual must engage with it critically, interpreting it through their own experiences and insights, rather than accepting it as unquestionable truth. Quote 113. Only through present reality can we gain access to the timeless. Only in apprehending time can we attain to that sphere where all time is extinguished. By fully engaging with the present moment and understanding its place in the flow of time, we can access deeper, timeless truths. Philosophy helps us move beyond the constraints of time and into an understanding of existence that transcends past, present, and future. Quote 114. The history of philosophy, a space in which I think and breathe, reveals in inimitable perfection prototypes for my own searching. The history of philosophy provides a rich environment for personal reflection and intellectual growth. It offers examples and prototypes of philosophical inquiry that can inspire and guide individuals on their own philosophical journey, encouraging them to think deeply and explore their own truths. Way to Wisdom, An Introduction to Philosophy, by Karl Jaspers concludes with an inspiring message about the enduring significance of philosophy in cultivating awareness and self-realization. Jaspers highlights that philosophy is not about accumulating knowledge, but rather about an ongoing pursuit of understanding and existential clarity. He stresses that true wisdom comes from engaging deeply with questions of meaning, ethics, and one's place within the vastness of existence. In closing, Jaspers leaves readers with the insight that philosophy, when practiced earnestly, offers a path to personal growth, resilience, and an authentic encounter with life's mysteries.
Curious to dive into the mind of Karl Jaspers? With StudyLab Pro's Book GPT, it's possible. Ask questions, explore themes, and discover the depths of Way to Wisdom, An Introduction to Philosophy in an entirely new way. Start your conversation now by clicking on our logo. And if you're hungry for more educational content, subscribe to our channel to keep discovering, learning, and growing. Want more than just videos? Click on our logo now to join us on our platform for multiple choice tests, in-depth content, and tools to help you ace your studies. Get started now.